What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cooldown. It's me, the Long Run, aka Jeremy, and today I am joined by two analysts from FiveFootNothinSports. I'm gonna let them introduce yourselves. So, gentlemen, take it away.
I'm Coach Dubs, Jeremy's older brother, actually.
Fair.
Coach K, how we doing, guys? Welcome. I'm glad to be on. Thank you for having us on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So today we're doing something a little different than normal, but we're doing some NFL draft analysis, kind of our own thoughts of how we think it went, just the experience as a whole, and how that's going to look forward to the 2020 season and beyond.
Yes. I was say one of the things that we did, because with this quarantine, we had our own little mock draft, which was cool. With 5 other guys doing some trades. We only did 3 rounds, but interesting to see how we perceived it and how the teams actually did it. We had a lot more trades than they did.
That is fair.
But
yeah, I feel like our draft was a lot more creative than what actually took place over the weekend. I think you started to see, the effects of the quarantine, the effects of, I think, the general managers and the coaches being at home and not really being able to rely on the technology to kind of make a lot of trades happen. You saw a lot of chalk. I have to say, years and years of watching the draft and watching people do mock drafts leading up to it, I've never seen so many accurate predictions of where guys would go and to what teams. Very, very rarely do you actually get to see hey, what we're thinking is exactly what the general managers were thinking. I think a lot of that also had to do with as well the fact that general managers couldn't have private workouts or see guys on their own or have those interviews, and I think they just had to rely on the tape that so many of us saw or had the opportunity to see.
Yeah, I think it definitely simplified it all, and they you had to go with your board. You didn't have complex numbers to look at anymore. You couldn't look at these random drills or workouts or extra tape. It was just their actual game footage, unless it's Tua. Tua had those few extra Instagram videos. But besides that, you didn't have a lot. And I think the simplified version, at least I hope, it's going to make more accurate picks, which is then going to develop into better players in the next 2 to 5 years.
I could see that, especially because there's a couple of value picks that you could tell as the draft went on. It's that doesn't make necessarily sense for that team because they were strong in that position, but they took the best available player.
Yeah. And I think, outside of the whole the coronavirus and teams not having the same capabilities of evaluating talent, I think that's the new trend now. Dubs, I think your 49ers have kind of, recreated that model where it's not always about your need, as much as it is take the best player in the board. If we have 4 or 5 outstanding defensive ends, that's not a problem. It's actually a really good luxury to have. You saw that with the Cowboys when they took CeeDee Lamb. Did they need a receiver? No. Did they need CeeDee Lamb? Yeah, that's a really good addition to have on your team because now it makes that offense even more explosive.
Yeah, I know. Just odd-wise, I think the Cowboys are tied for the Bucks tied for second to win the NFC. It goes Niners, then the Bucks and Cowboys are both 6-1 odds, and that has to do, I'm almost certain, with the CeeDee Lamb pickup. That definitely elevated them above the Packers and the Saints because they have that extra dynamic threat.
Yeah, I think this is it's the draft now having a big impact on Vegas and the odds for winning the Super Bowl, particularly NFC. And, obviously the Brady going into Tampa Bay, we can get into that a little bit later on. I have an extra box of tissues to kind of talk about that. But it's also not just what those teams did, but what other teams did not do, or unfortunately did. Because you look at the Packers, and this is something I mentioned in my draft grades, they're the second best team in the NFC last year, and now them drafting Jordan Love and the rest of their draft, a lot of people not really taking the Packers seriously going into next year. Definitely not being viewed as one of the better teams.
One thing, I guess this is where we can start talking. I actually like the Jordan Love pick. I actually called it. We were in a Zoom call with Dubs, and when they traded up, I was like, they're picking Love. There's no reason you don't trade up to do it. And I understand that right now it is not a good look. You were just in the championship game, but you lost by a substantial amount. That game was very unfair. And the Bucks just got way better. So not saying they're throwing the towel in for this year, but I forgot who said this, but they've had 30 years of good quarterback play. If sacrificing one draft, which might be a season or two, secures you another 12 years of good quarterback play, as a Packer fan, it's I'm not a Packer fan, but like if you think about it, that's hard to pass up.
It makes sense.
I think we've seen this story before because these are almost the same exact circumstances in which Aaron Rodgers was drafted. And at that time, Brett Favre was, oh my God, you're going to replace Brett Favre and you're going to replace him now. It's really interesting, the DNA of teams and how teams think and how teams perceive. You look at the New York Giants, for example, and how long it took them to move on from Eli Manning. And now you look at the Packers, and they have had two quarterbacks, Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, who talent-wise, much better than an Eli Manning. Maybe not as accomplished, but still, no problem whatsoever as being, guys, it's time, we're moving on.
Yeah, and I think it's something that you have to do, and no fan and no team ever wants to do it, especially to a guy who is the face of the franchise. Like, there is nobody close to Green Bay in the last 15 years than Aaron Rodgers. No one close. And before that, Brett Favre. You kind of have to sometimes do what hurts. You got to rip the Band-Aid off and,
And what's funny is it's almost like the Packers learned from, which you go all the way back to the 90s, is the 49ers. Moving on from Joe Montana to put Steve Young in, and which at that time was not, was not highly regarded as going to be a stud or MVP, goes out, wins the Super Bowl, and then then he can't beat the Packers because of Brett Favre. Brett Favre wins his, gets a little older, they move on from Brett Favre. Aaron Rodgers is under him for a little bit. The same thing with Jordan Love's going to be. He's going to be there for a couple of years, and they're not going to. It's almost like they're also not going to pay that astronomical price for that quarterback. I'm not paying you $30 million, and when I can have another guy for 15. Mm-hmm. So,
do you think the Steelers are having the same issue right now? I know they didn't have a lot of draft picks. It would have been very, very hard for them to move up in the draft. But I think the story's pretty much out on Big Ben that his prime days are long gone. Yeah, they drafted Mason Rudolph, but I don't think anyone really viewed him as a successor to Big Ben. And here we see another draft, another offseason go by, and they're still not really addressing the whole quarterback situation. You guys think he's another guy that, like, the Steelers just don't want to move on to him? Is just another one of those franchises that operate that way? They're very loyal to their quarterback.
They're very loyal. They're loyal to players and coaches. Like, I think they have the fewest coaches in NFL history, right?
Yeah. And I mean, but here's the thing. Their loyalty has worked. I think that you have to go, there's different ways you can go about your business. And I think that the Steelers have that loyalty where, guess what? That this guy's not moving, which in the locker room, that Tomlin's not going anywhere, which means as a player, you have to work your ass off for him. It's not about what your individual goal is. That's why Antonio Brown's out and now out of the league. So I think that's when you kind of look at the Packers mentality is you're an older quarterback. We're going to move on from you. That's just what we do. And we'll kind of go from there. I think that and certain teams are trying to find it. The Saints are trying to go one last time. But at the same time, they protected what they view as the future. So that's kind of, you're going to kick the tires one last time. That's fine. But they also, let's make sure that we have a future. You don't want to be a team where you kick the tires one last time. You're the 2002 Raiders. They make the Super Bowl, and then they're nothing after that. Like they were so old that they all fell apart. If they won, it would have been great, but take that risk.
Yeah, I think the Steelers, they want one last hurrah. I think that's why, they made the trade last year with the Dolphins. And I wonder if maybe the quarterback market, how it is right now with, Winston's off the market right now, but, you still have Cam out there. Dalton's obviously available. Carr might be available next year. Rodgers is now eventually going to be available. So maybe they're thinking, we don't need to invest another random third-round pick or trade up to the second or third-round pick to get Eason or Fromm, that we'll just wait for next year, ride out Big Ben one more time, and if he gets hurt, we already know what we're going to get. We'll be a 500 team, maybe a playoff team now. But I think maybe that's what they're doing. They realize that they're just going to ride it out, and if they're a good enough team, a good quarterback wouldn't mind signing there. Like Andy Dalton, if he becomes a free agent, wouldn't mind signing with the Steelers if they are an 8 to 10 win team, and that would probably be the best team he's ever played on.
You know, that's to me as a fan, and I'm not a Steelers fan. I know somebody from Pittsburgh who's, doesn't seem to be a very happy sports fan, but I think I would be upset by that. I'm sure I'd be very loyal to Big Ben. You want the best for the guy, but the guy's been banged up a lot. He's up there in age. Like, there has to be a point where, the rest of the team is getting better. I thought the Steelers, for the lack of picks, had a pretty decent draft, and they have slowly put together this really young, good defense. And when they got Fitzpatrick last year, that team took off. Now it's after Ben got hurt.
Yeah.
So, they're building the right pieces there. James Conner's a good running back. Juju Smith-Schuster's a good receiver. They have a lot of talent on that team. And I don't know, just to aspire to be a 500 team or maybe a playoff team in the AFC North, I don't know. I think you're doing your fan base a real disservice of just saying, hey, yeah, we'll kind of see what's happening with Big Ben. Like, the Giants doing that with Eli was one thing because they're not that good of a team. Like, it didn't really matter how good Eli was going to be. That team wasn't going anywhere. They don't have the pieces. The Steelers have a lot of really nice pieces. And it's got to be frustrating if there's for the Steeler fans to see that happening and like, hey, yeah, the most important position on the field, yeah, we'll figure it out.
I think that they're basing it off of which you looked at that team last year. The games that they lost when he wasn't playing were all close for the most part, and because they're a good team. And if you just had a random mediocre, if you had Ryan Fitzpatrick, they'd be in the playoffs. So that's I think that's what they're looking at is what, Big Ben's going to be healthy, and they're going that way. Like, he has extra rest. Like, I think that's kind of what they're thinking is our team is that talented. If we're able to keep him healthy, this team can now challenge the Ravens, can challenge the Chiefs. Like, you see the weakness in now that the AFC East is no longer the AFC East. So you're kind of viewing it that way with Big Ben and they didn't have I don't think they had the draft capital to move up to the first round to get Jordan.
No, I don't think
they did not have that. And after that, I'm not sold on any of those guys. I'm sold on more of your Aaron Gordon from Washington State. Like, I'm going to take a flyer on him before I'm going to take a flyer on Fromm. So that's my.
Yeah, that's how I view it. Especially that was Lamar Jackson. Like, obviously, I hope he does great again. But if he doesn't repeat that success, they regress a game or two. Well, that could be the Steelers game. They split with the Steelers. Now they're 9-7, pick up another win, and all they have to do is make the playoffs. With a defense that good, if you have a competent quarterback in Big Ben, who's been there before, he's not the same Big Ben, but he's been there before. All he has to do is just hand off to James Conner. Maybe if you keep it under 20 points, you don't know. And I know that's not ideal. And if you're a fan, you don't want to live and die by that. But
I think that's only true to a certain extent. I mean, again, you look at our past Super Bowls, especially in the last 5, 7 years. You have to have an upper echelon quarterback. You really do. And I know it's kind of slanted because, Brady goes all the time, and he's the greatest quarterback of all time. So it's going to skew your numbers a little bit. But,
Patrick Mahomes, great game.
Patrick Mahomes isn't going anywhere. Russell Wilson, great quarterback, gets his team to Super Bowls. Your Peyton Mannings of the world. Like, the game of football has progressed to a point where you can't be hopeful or just rely on, just being hopeful that, if we're all right at the quarterback position, we sneak in and all of a sudden we get hot. Yeah.
We have for the Niners.
Because but Garoppolo was not Ryan Fitzpatrick. Garoppolo was an upper tier quarterback.
But Garoppolo and Big Ben, I could view them as comparable.
Well, Big Ben from 5-6 years ago. Yeah. Big Ben from right now. See,
he's not. Garoppolo's more. He can move more. That's the difference. He's healthier.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. See, the Ryan Fitzpatrick model to me is the same exact model the Tennessee Titans are trying to operate under.
Oh yeah.
Gave Tannehill all that money, and I addressed that in my draft grades as well on FiveFootNothin.blogspot.com, where to me they made a huge mistake in not really addressing the offense. They like their model. They think their model works. They had a very successful run in the playoffs. But don't forget, Blake Bortles had a very successful run in the playoffs, and now he's not even a starter in the league anymore. So that's not a sustainable model. I think the football today has proven that. And if Steelers fans, Titans fans, you want to have, or at least try to have, an upper echelon quarterback if you really think you're going to compete.
And that's true. The only thing is, if Big Ben's healthy, he's gonna compete. If Patrick Mahomes is not healthy, the Chiefs aren't the Chiefs. So that defense is easy to run. Like if you have an upper echelon quarterback, correct, you're way and above everybody else. But if they get hurt, no matter what, you're taking a drop off. And I think that's why I think for a team like the Steelers, we should get into the draft actually, but a team like the Steelers, it's smart to go after Cam or go after Dalton, because then that drop off is not as crazy. When you have a Jimmy Garoppolo to a Nick Mullins or CJ Beathard, like that's a huge drop off for a Super Bowl team, right? I would not think a Carr to drop off to Mariota is that big of a deal, but a Mahomes to Matt Moore, that's a big drop off, and you see it. Yes, Andy Reid is creative, and same as like Kyle Shanahan. They're very creative, but they still can't mask all of those holes for more and more weeks as you go on. So I think that the Steelers' best option, Big Ben is going to miss a couple of games. I think you kind of have to know that. You've known that going in the past 5 years.
Yes, that's been years.
He's going to be missing games. You got to get a quarterback that can play and actually win you a game.
Right. I mean, I think
Mason Rudolph isn't going to win you a game. He's just not going to hopefully win you a game.
The difference with your comparison, Patrick Mahomes, the over-under on him playing games is at 14, 15, 16. Whereas Big Ben, what would you say the over-under is now? 5, 7, maybe 9 at the most? I mean, at this point, based on how injured he's been, how old he is, you can't rely on him like other teams do with their quarterbacks.
That's fair.
I see it. Yeah.
That's fair.
It's worked out for 2 other teams with 40-year-old quarterbacks. So
2 teams?
Well, the Saints have been pretty successful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've been cute successful. They get to make the playoffs, and then something happened.
Hey, Peyton barely beat out Brock Osweiler, and then they had a Super Bowl run. So
very true.
You never know what's gonna happen.
Yes, I would say that would be the anomaly.
All right, let's move into the draft and talk about each of our teams. I'll go first. So I'm a Saints fan. I was a little confused by the overall draft. The first round pick, Cesar Ruiz. At first I was confused, and then it made some sense. Drew Brees is not mobile, so you have to protect the middle of the pocket so he can move up and down, because that's all he does. He does not move left and right. So if that helps shore that part of the lineup, I'm okay with it. I wish we went defense. Patrick Queen was on the board right there, and we need a linebacker, and I really wish we picked him up, and he fell down to the Ravens, which ended up being a stud pickup for them. So that one hurt. Then the next 2 picks, both in the 3rd round, we traded the rest of our draft and next year to pick up an outside linebacker, Zach Bond, and a tight end, Adam Troutman.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Both of those picks seemed like they were good for the right now, which I'm okay with. Again, we want to have one last hurrah with Brees before he goes on to TV. But at the same time, we mortgaged so much in an NFC that is so stacked. And I do think we're still arguably the best team. It's a very bad argument, but I think you can make the compelling argument that Drew Brees...
in New Orleans, yes.
That Drew Brees can compete with the other guys in the NFC for the most part. Our running game can compete with them. We picked up Emmanuel Sanders. We have the pieces to do so, but it's in 2 years. What are we going to do without this last hurrah? And that's the part that hurts.
And when I look at the Saints draft, Jeremy, I'm not actually seeing guys for this year.
I've seen the future.
I think this is slowly the beginning of the rebuild. When you draft a center, with your first pick, that's not a plug and play. That's okay. We're drafting this guy because we see him being a center for the next 8 years, 5 to 8 years, hopefully even 10.
So he's actually moving to guard.
That's their plan initially?
Yeah, because we drafted this center last year, and he was really McCoy, he was really good last year. So they're moving him to guard to compete with our current right guard, and the winner gets it.
But even with the Zach Bond, I like Zach Bond. Watching him at Wisconsin, I think
he's very athletic, which I like.
Right, he's not as talented as a Patrick Queen, but still a good value pick. Adam Troutman is another one from Dayton. I didn't get a chance to watch a lot of Dayton football this year.
Most haven't.
I like, he's a big body. He can catch the ball at a very high point. Someone you definitely want, but still probably a project, which is why he's going in the third round, especially in a very weak tight end crop this year.
Yeah.
I think Sean Payton is slowly preparing for the rebuild, and you're right. You guys didn't have a lot of draft pieces, in which to really improve for next year to be like a Super Bowl contending team. But yeah, I agree. You have Drew Brees. You have Drew Brees healthy. You have an explosive offense. That's something I'd be gambling with.
Yeah, and I think we already had enough. I think if we didn't pick up Emmanuel Sanders, then I would say this draft was bad. But then we probably would have addressed wide receiver. But I think we have enough pieces offensively that we can put together a pretty productive offense. I just wish we addressed somewhat of the defense. Obviously, we picked up Zach in the third round, but I really wish we either attacked either the defensive line or our linebacking core.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get the Ruiz pick a lot. I'm not a big fan of the Wisconsin pick at all. Watching Big Ten football, I'm not. Big Ten gets run over all the time, and he's a smaller guy. He's fast, but he's small. And you kind of look at it that way is, I don't know how it's going to translate when it comes to the NFL. But the reason why they're doing it is I think that, like Coach K said, they're trying to build for the future. While, the Emmanuel Sanders pickup in the offseason was get better at the wide receiver so you can't double Michael Thomas all the time, and you weakened your number one threat is the San Francisco 49ers. Like, that was the one guy I wanted to re-sign because we saw, as a Niner fan, you saw the transformations. He hit the field, how the rest of the receivers not only got better because they learned from him, but how he opened up the field. And that's a concern for me moving into this. So I'll go next because it's kind of
it's a good segue.
Good segue, right?
Yeah, it's a good segue.
When we did the mock draft, I was all for trading back. I wanted both picks out of the first round. I wanted multiple picks. My draft board was very big when it came to the talent that I wanted. When we get to 14, though, and in my opinion, the number 1 and 2 wide receiver, 1A, 1B, or 1 and 1A are right there in Judy and CeeDee Lamb. Personally, would have went Lamb, but they don't do either. And this is where I have to trust the Lynch and Shanahan model. Taking Javon Kinlaw from South Carolina, he was a top, roughly top 10 guy. It wasn't like, his talent level is top 15 grade. And it was a nice pick. We are deep at that position, which was good for us. We keep rotating guys in, but it was to me a little bit surprising, especially when those guys are on the board. The next pick to me is probably the most surprising is the Brandon Ayuk, I think is how you say his name, wide receiver from Arizona, which, because of their couple games on nice primetime on college football, I did watch him play, and he is a talented guy. Coached by Herm Edwards, I think is good for the league, good for him to make bounce in the league. But it was a surprise, and a trade up was just weird because we didn't have a lot of draft capital, even though we traded back one pick with the Tampa Bay Bucks in the first round. And all we did was trade that pick to move up 5 picks. A little different. The rest of the draft is okay to me with the offensive tackle. You can't have too many guys on the line. The Juwan Jennings deal was pretty good, I thought, but I felt that there was another wide receiver still on the board that I liked better, and that's where the Big Ten comes in. I like KJ Hill. I think that he's just a talented route runner, and my favorite part was when all the draft experts are talking, is he might not be the fastest, he might not be the tallest, but not the strongest. But on one-on-one coverage, he beats it every time. And I'm like, what else do you need? Like,
what else matters?
like that to me is I don't understand what else could possibly matter if that's what it is. Like, I just don't get it. And that to me is a shocker on how far he fell. Honestly, really, that to me is the most surprising. And then when it comes to our because we took the tight end from Georgia. I mean, Moss from LSU was still on the board. Like, there was a couple of other tight ends that,
and he fell a lot too.
and he fell, and
I didn't think he was gonna fall that far. Yeah,
that to me is what was like weird, because I'm like, all right, this kid from Georgia, I watch college football all the time. He's not a name I know, and I know a lot of those names that came off that board, even in the 7th round. So it's kind of like, all right, and my thing is, if you're that deep, I'd rather you reach deep in the rounds compared to early in the rounds. And I think that's where I'm gonna have to trust them, because they've done very well late in rounds. You look at the George Kittle pick, you look at the Greenlaw pick from last year. They do very well in later rounds. So that's kind of where I'm standing on that grade.
I think you need to add in Trent Williams too, though.
Oh, and I forgot to
add because that instantly bumps you up a whole letter grade.
The Trent Williams trade does help us out a lot, giving up a 5th and a 3rd.
That's nothing for the value you're getting. And honestly, impressive by Stanley and the 49ers to say, hey, stay quiet so we can get a good bargain on the trade. Because if he retired a week ago, you would probably had to cough up more. So the fact that they were like, okay, you're retiring, please be patient with us. Let's make a deal, and then you can go. That's awesome. That's good organization right there.
Yeah.
That trade, because I mean we were talking about it. I was actually 2 separate texting you guys and talking about like where's Trent Williams going to go, and I kept telling I forget your handle.
Just tell Jeremy. You can go with Jeremy.
Okay, Jeremy, about how you wanted Trent Williams, and we kept going back and forth. And I was like, there's something about this. It just seems off. It seems weird. Like all his background with the Redskins, there's a lot of things that aren't making sense. And then at about the day and a half before this trade gets made, all of a sudden the Niners name gets brought in. They have not been brought in. So it's almost like everyone, like the Niners knew, and they went, and it's like how they got John Lynch as the GM. Nobody had any idea. That was He called Shanahan, and they went, you know what, we're going to be very secretive, and we're just going to make our move. And they made the move at the last minute.
The big thing that I really focused on when I was evaluating all the teams' drafts was the vision in mind. Okay, sometimes it's not always about evaluating the players as much as it is evaluating a team's vision. You look at the Broncos, for example. Here's a team that didn't make the playoffs last year. They have this young, promising quarterback, and they just said, you know what, guys, let's just figure out if he's our guy or not. Let's surround him with as much talent as we can. They brought in Melvin Gordon. They make the pick for Jerry Jeudy. They draft
their 2nd round pick's a wide receiver too.
The 2nd round, and I'm blanking on their 2nd round pick.
Is it the Colorado kid?
No, it's not Colorado kid. I have it right here.
It's KJ.
Yeah, KJ Hamler from Penn State, who I liked a lot too. They just win, and that was really. I mean, it's John Elway, and John Elway's a quarterback, and if I was a quarterback, I want a lot of boys to play with as well. But you look at the 49ers, and they were the best team in the Super Bowl for 3 quarters. They're the best team in the world. You put that together with the regular season that they had. They were by far the best team. The playoffs start, the offense got super, super conservative, and then Jimmy Garoppolo was really exposed, and especially in that 4th quarter. I mean, he looked nothing like he did earlier on in the year. And there's no doubt, they're very creative minds in San Francisco, but they have taken some real bold selections when it comes to receiver and trying to address the receiving core. It's almost like they're trying to outsmart the room, which sometimes can be a benefit. I mean, Bill Belichick's the best at that. However, Belichick's had a ton of flops in the draft. So here you're the Niners. What's the vision? The vision is, listen, we're just going to stick to what we know, and what we know is that this is winning football. Or, especially those 2 picks in the 1st round, you could have literally had the same draft the Broncos did. Then I don't even think we're talking about all the competition in the NFC. The Niners are the best team, and that's it.
Yeah. So to continue with the hit and misses of the Niners, these great teams, was, like you said, the Patriots, and it's almost like they overthink themselves. It's almost like for some reason Bill Belichick became a coach for the Raiders when he picks wide receivers. I don't know. Like, that's just kind of what it is. And that's my feeling when it comes to the Niners. Is you look at their past, I mean, was it 2 years ago with the Pettis deal? I remember being like, what are you doing? Like, it doesn't make that's what makes me a little bit nervous when it comes to wide receivers, especially when you hit on a guy like Debo and Bourne, where they were mid guys, and they were studs. They like to fight, and that's where kind of I'm a little iffy when it comes to that. I get a model that they're building, like you said before about the model is it's going to go line and beat us. But I'm going to say one thing: if Chris Jones doesn't block that pass, George Kittle goes for 680 yards and the game's over. But move on.
if you can move on,
Yeah.
and it's still a very young front office in San Francisco with Shanahan and Lynch. They're learning. It's all part of it, but you have to have that moment. You're right, where it's like, okay, what's more important? How smart we are, or is it actually winning? For years, the Patriots operate under that same way. It's like, yeah, we'll find receiver value. It's no big deal. Put together the other pieces here, and it's all going to work. Well, 10 drops later by Rashae Caldwell, in the 2006 AFC title game, Peyton Manning leads one of the greatest comebacks against the Patriots. What do the Patriots do the next year? They go out and sign Wes Welker, and they trade for a guy by the name of Randy Moss. So you have to have those, I think, those moments. I kind of thought the Super Bowl last year would be one of those moments, especially with CeeDee Lamb still available, like you said, and Jerry Jeudy. Like, these are pretty big-time talents in a very, very deep wide receiver draft. It definitely could have helped the Niners.
And that's where my concern is this wide receiver draft was so deep. There's T. Higgins. To me, this draft was unbelievably talented. There's the Minnesota, the kids from Texas that have all these records, and Ohio State kid. Like, this draft to me, as the tight ends were, there was nothing for tight ends, but for wide receivers, it was so deep. To move up to me to move up for a guy when you had the two best guys on the board still for you it's just odd to me. So, but let's go to your Patriots.
I'd love to talk about my Patriots. So, after a very, very rough couple of weeks, with the love of our lives, Tom Brady deciding to move on, and then a couple of days before the draft, Rob Gronkowski. So I don't know why we don't talk about this enough. Him just surrendering the 24/7 WWE Championship belt.
That's how you know he's competitive. He's ready to come back.
Clearly,
giving up all the glamour and the glory.
Absolutely. He finally climbed Everest and climbed off of it to go and play for the Bucks. It was a rough week as a Patriot fan. It really, really was. And what I liked about this draft, Bill Simmons said it perfectly on his podcast today. It felt like a Patriot draft, like an old school Patriot draft. They got more athletic. They drafted, the linebackers, which I loved, and Josh Uche and Anthony Jennings. Two bookends that the Patriots have been sorely, sorely needing, especially with the departure of Kyle Van Noy. I like Kyle Duggar coming out of Leon Rhine. How are you saying that small school?
Random place.
I like his athleticism. I like the fact that he's also a special teams player, which has also been a huge Achilles heel for this team, not having a good return game at all in the last several years. I like what they did in understanding this is not our year. 2020 for the Patriots is going to be a lost year, and there was really nothing they could do about it. They only have a couple $1 million in cap space. Brady's gone. The offense was one of the worst offenses I've seen in the entire Brady era. Dubs is something you and I talked a lot about during the year. They were one of the top leaders in drops this year. The running game was absolutely abysmal. They have some young guys on the line who are hopefully maturing, but it just wasn't a good offense, period. And you weren't going to fix that with the cap space they had, and you weren't going to fix that in 1 year. Now, next year looks beautiful because they're going to have close to $100 million in cap space. There are some big-name free agents who I would love Bill to go out there and get. and they have lots of draft picks. So if they want to move up in the draft this year to draft a quarterback next year, that would be absolutely ideal. And I think that's in the back of Belichick's mind. It has to be. Stidham has looked well in the preseason. He's one of their guys. They've talked highly about him since they drafted him. Why not see what the guy has? You have nothing to lose. See what he has. If he's not your guy, it means you're going to be, not only are you not going to be good, but you're going to be bad.
Yeah.
So we're going to be in the top 10 of the draft, and maybe that's where you make your move to draft a quarterback.
That's fair. I just think you're not really giving Stidham a fair shot, which I guess that's part of the league anyway. You don't always get your fair chance, especially in this draft. They didn't really address offense, but again, vision-wise, like you were talking about before, it makes sense. If they know this isn't our year, but we're gonna see if Stidham shows some promise, and they still have Sanu's not great, but
you look at the wide receivers on this team. I'm looking forward to Edelman retiring because the guy is so badly beaten up. Gronk is another story of how he's being able to come back and play because the guy's had so many surgeries and so many concussions. Edelman, to me, is far worse in terms of how bad that poor small body of his has been beaten up. But you still do have Edelman there. Sanu, hopefully, because I love that trade in the middle of the year. However, that trade was not going to help us in the middle of the year because this is not baseball. This is not basketball. Players need time to learn that complex of a system, especially in New England. So hopefully with a year, he could be one of our veteran receivers we can rely on. I'm not a big N'Keal Harry fan. The guy's athletic. He's incredibly raw. But, year 2 is a big year for him. If Harry does well, it's because Stidham's doing well. And if Stidham does well, this team flirts with 8-8, 9-7. Maybe we're not drafting a quarterback next year.
And this is why I disagree with both of you when it comes to the vision. I think Bill Belichick is trying to be like he is one of the smartest guys to ever be on the field, coaching or be a GM of a team. But at the same time, I think he is a little pissed off. This is him and Brady both. The marriage broke up. It's Jerry Krause and Phil Jackson. It's going to break up. And you've been around for so long, they break up. They both want to prove that they don't need the other person. The problem is the Patriots are stuck in a spot because of the cap hit from Brady, that they can't do anything. But I think Belichick is still believing he can somehow make the playoffs because there's no reason to me why Sanu is still on this team after this draft. He should have been traded, and you could say Edelman, but it's hard. I think it's kind of hard to move Edelman because of his injury past, and is he a product of Tom Brady? And you're going to keep Harry, but I think not moving on from Sanu to try to get some more draft capital does kind of hurt you. And I know I talked about this with Jeremy, is when it comes to it looking like a Patriots draft, 100% looks like a Patriots draft. The difference is it looks like a Patriots draft from 2007 to 2013, 14, where you had Tom Brady in the middle of that, who was holding everything in. You don't have Tom Brady now. And that, to me, that's why I'm okay with the Devin Assie pick from UCLA. The Dalton Keene pick makes no sense to me when there was all these other tight ends that were on the board. And that, to me, is kind of the issue where I'm looking at, he's over analyzing it, in my opinion. And we're not even going to mention the kicker.
And that could very well be the kicker. That could be true. But the tight end you're referring to, I don't know why I'm blanking so much tonight.
Dalton Keene from Virginia.
Dalton Keene, yes. Dalton Keene is not your traditional tight end. He's an H-back. He's versatile. You can come out of the backfield. You can split him out.
He's Danny Woodhead.
In a lot of ways.
Bigger yes. Danny Woodhead.
The problem is, and that's why I'm going back to that initial thing of the Patriot draft, is the problem was he hadn't had those drafts in the last 2 years, Belichick. Drafting Sony Michel in the first round. That's not a Belichick thing to do. You don't draft a running back in the first round unless you're giving him the ball near 20 times a game, and that guy's going to be in the top 5 in the rushing. You don't do that. You don't pick N'Keal Harry in the first round like they did last year. That was a panic move to try to give Brady another weapon, but he did not fit the style of offense that the Patriots run. And that's why, again, I don't have too many high hopes for him. I hope his athleticism can take over and we can utilize him in a different way. But he's not a first round pick. And them going kind of this old school, let's rebuild, the front 7, the back, that approach I like. The Patriots had, without a shadow of a doubt, the worst collection of tight ends last year. They needed to get creative with that, especially in a very
the Bears.
Well, they still have Mitch Trubisky as their quarterback, so let's have him get a real quarterback first, and then we can evaluate him.
That's true. Can't really evaluate.
If you're tight end, you can't catch passes in a Tom Brady, Josh McDaniels offense. You are bad, and that is something you need to address in a very weak tight end year. The best part is their fourth round picks. So if they don't work out, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to kill your team. But to me, at least they're versatile. They have speed. That's something we can absolutely utilize. I think Belichick, if he's mad at Brady for, the fact that he wanted to trade him 2 years ago and Brady nixed it, and because of that he lost Garoppolo, that's fine. I think nothing in Bill's mind is more important than winning. And I don't think this year is necessarily about sticking it to him. I would be shocked, I will tell you this, if Sanu was on this team come trade deadline and fall. We would have to be in first place in the East if he's on the team. Because to me, Sanu lost all of his trade value based on the way he played in New England. You couldn't trade him after that. You weren't getting anything. But if Sanu does well in New England and they want to make a trade then to get your assets, that makes a lot more sense to me. The only thing I think that fuels Bill Belichick is winning.
Well,
that's it. And that's why he wanted to trade Gronk to get what he wanted to get then. That's why he wanted to trade Brady. The only thing this guy likes is winning and his dog. I think that's it.
The draft dog was good.
Listen, it's still a breakup. Still a breakup.
Sure. I mean, sure it is. Do you think it affected Brady more, or do you think it affected Belichick more?
Brady left. I think Brady got to leave, and I think that might. I don't know. I think that because Brady got to call his shots.
Brady chose to leave.
Brady called Tampa and pitched him to Tampa. Like, to me, that's a major thing. Is, what he wanted out. I think that they both wanted out of the relationship. The 100%. Problem was one of them couldn't actually negotiate. The other one could, and I think that I do think yes, his number one thing is he wants to win 100%. I get that, and that's fine with me. I have no. He's not a, in my opinion, John Gruden, who's looking for the fanfare. All he cares about is winning. If you can help me, good. If you can't, bye. And you could see that in the way what he wrote for James Devlin, who just retired.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he wants. He wants those guys, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I look at it, Tom Brady got to lead. He got to pick. He got to say, "I'm the one leaving. I got to take my ball and go home." And I think that's a little bit of just a little still twist of the knife to Belichick.
Can we all agree it's going to be an amazing 30 for 30?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
I can't wait.
For sure.
It'll be better than the Jordan one, that's for sure.
That's already good.
Jordan one's good. So.
It's all right. It's okay.
It's good. Yeah, I wish it was in more chronological order.
Yeah.
Jump around, but
I don't want to get too off topic, but I don't know. Seems a little overhyped right now. The Robin stuff really bored me.
Well, hold on. To be fair, there's nothing else to hype on TV right now.
That is also true. That is fair.
Have you seen Love is Blind?
All right, and on the phone, we got Ryan, a familiar face, even though his face is not here on the cooldown. But he's here. He's going to talk about his favorite team, the Buffalo Bills.
All right. So one thing that was a standout to me was that the Bills didn't do any trading, which I think was pretty interesting.
Well, they didn't do trades in the draft.
Yeah, in the draft. And I thought that some of their picks were pretty interesting, like the what's it called? Getting a QB in the 5th round, like Jake Fromm. I feel like that we already have a pretty young quarterback. I don't know why they would draft another quarterback. I know that they could probably use another one to maybe help Matt Barkley get competitive and maybe push him a little bit more. But it was one of the ones that I thought was pretty questionable from them. There was a really good choice in Zach Moss. I think that we really needed another running back. I know we have Singletary, but other than him, we didn't really have much firepower. I think that we were relying on Singletary and we wanted Josh Allen to make big plays, but I feel like he didn't really have much going for him. So the
He
two
did too
things that,
much.
yeah, the things that I was, yeah, exactly. And the things that I think that he was looking for was maybe another person that could run the ball when Singletary couldn't, or like another receiver that was reliable or like a big target. And
So
I think
one
they
thing
also,
I want to cut you off real quick.
yeah.
So preferences. Ryan, not a big college football guy. He's a big numbers guy.
Yeah.
So
True.
what I want to do is I just want to make sure we address the points that you talked about as they go, because they make sense, just not in a numbers way. And then you're a big numbers guy, which is why in 2 years you'll be able to understand. Like you'll know how these all worked. But the quarterback, Jake Fromm, you drafted in the 5th round.
Yeah.
Super smart guy, and a super good guy. He's a guy you want in the locker room. So for him, with Josh Allen, your quarterback, what he's able to do is not see the field. The goal is if Jake Fromm doesn't see the field, you guys can be a playoff team every year, because he can say, hey, Josh, this is what I see on this play. This is what you can do here. And also like coach him up as a person, even though Josh Allen hasn't had behavioral issues at all, but you can always grow and develop.
But if you've seen Josh Allen play, you know one thing: he's not exactly the smartest quarterback.
Yeah,
That is true.
It
That is
was
true.
It was the first playoff game against the Patriots, or was it Patriots or Texans?
No. It was the Texans.
Yeah, and he tries to lateral the ball.
Yeah.
Like, hold the ball, just go down.
That in like I think it was three plays straight in overtime. He just ran back and just kept running back. It was like
minus 18 yards.
Yeah, I was just getting so frustrated with him. But that's an interesting point. I mean, I guess I don't really understand that dynamic as much, like how much they'd be interacting and what he'd be actually offering to them.
his Jake Fromm's job is to be another coach. That's going to be his job.
Yes, although I do think there's something a little bit more to it as well. Watching Jake Fromm throughout college and also QB1, which is a phenomenal show when you saw him in high school as well. 2 years ago, Jake Fromm was going to be projected to be a first-round quarterback.
Arguably the best.
He's had some real shoulder problems, and last year was just absolutely abysmal. But what a lot of people don't understand about that Georgia team last year, it was very run-heavy. Rely on your defense. And plus, all of his receivers were gone. He lost a lot of receivers to the draft over the years, and plus the receivers he did have were always hurt. So Georgia was so limited in their offensive approach to the game by like week 5 or 6. And you add the shoulder issues that Fromm had on top of that, it was spelling disaster, which is why he fell so far in the draft. And I think because teams couldn't evaluate him is why he slid even more. Yeah, he wasn't going to be a first or even a second round quarterback, but a lot of mocks had him going in the 3rd or 4th round. Right. Now, the reason why I like Buffalo taking him is because the way I'm looking at Ryan is he's the insurance policy to Josh Allen. Josh Allen does play an incredibly reckless style of football, and you see how he runs out of the pocket, how incredibly aggressive he is. And that's what makes him, fun to watch and, fun to watch the Bills. And he's one of the most dynamic players that franchise had in quite some time, especially at that position. But he slides the wrong way. He gets popped the wrong way. What's your backup? And if Fromm can slowly rehabilitate and he can slowly learn, which is not really a complex offense because it is very run heavy, he could be one of those guys who steps in and you're like, wow, he actually can play a little bit. Not saying he's going to be Drew Brees, but it's funny. When I see him, I think Chad Pennington. And Chad
Simple
Pennington won a lot of games for a lot of years, having the same similar, limitations that Fromm has.
I guess I kind of saw it though that they could have maybe used that pick to get more weapons for Josh Allen instead of picking a QB. But I mean, I guess regardless, if you look at the division that they're in, they are most likely going to come out of that division anyways.
Oh, let's just calm down.
I think that they'll come out of that division.
With Jarrett Stidham and this high-powered Patriot offense. And Bill.
You can go, Dubs.
I'm just going to go with the Jake Fromm thing, and I agree with a lot Coach K just said when it comes to, he's smart. He didn't have the weapons to run heavy. But the only thing is 2 years ago when he took over for Jacob Eason.
Jacob Eason, yeah.
When he kicked Jacob Eason out when he moved to Washington, Fromm was now the next guy who was going to be that, number one pick or whatever. And stud. It never really came to fruition. He had those moments. Don't get me wrong. He had great moments. Mm. But I think he's kind of a weaker Chad Pennington. I think he's smarter than Chad Pennington, but I don't think he has that arm, which Chad Pennington didn't have an arm at all. No. And my biggest thing when I look at it is, yes, they didn't have time to evaluate all these guys, but you look at guys who a year or 2 years before the draft, where they're projected especially for quarterbacks, so it's supposed to be the first or second taken, and then like the eighth taken. I look at a guy from last year, Drew Lock. Drew Lock only falls to the second round. Now, the year prior, I had Drew Lock as my number one quarterback for the following draft coming out. That was my personal thing. I liked the way he played him. I just liked what he had to do. Jake Fromm last year is probably in the same spot he was this year. And I think that, to me, is the concern. But again, I'm not going to harp on this because the fifth-round draft pick. To me, a fifth-round draft pick who has an 8-year career as a backup is a steal. So I'm not really going to – but I don't think he's going to step into that. And one of the other reasons why is he's in Buffalo, and if you don't have an arm, it's hard to throw in that weather.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that what he does bring is that intangible, especially in that quarterback room. I think that's what's going to help Josh Allen, because Josh Allen sees half the field. He doesn't see the full field yet, and I think that's his next step. And you need a guy who can be in those reps and be like, all right, well, listen, I saw this, and knowing he's not going to take over. So.
Do you think that will translate to the NFL, though? I mean, we're basing it off of what he did in college. I guess that's all you can base it off of. But
his smarts, yeah,
100%.
100%. And he played in the toughest conference, the SEC, where those looks you get on defense are looks you get in the NFL.
Yeah, correct. Correct.
And he played in all the big games.
Yeah, Georgia was always a top team.
SEC title games. The guy. I mean, this is the reason why Justin Fields had to transfer to Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Fields was the second-rated prospect. I mean, it was Trevor Lawrence.
And Justin Fields might be the number one pick next year.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of work to do that before we talk number one pick. But yeah, he's going to be a first round. Right now, he's projected to be a first round selection. But that's my point. Is this was supposed to be the guy, and Fromm played so well that they were like, you know what, that's fine. You can go transfer someplace else.
I wonder if Fromm in 2, 3, 5, depending on longest contract, if he'll be a Garoppolo or a Brissett, where a lot of preseason stuff, and you flip maybe more Brissett than Garoppolo, because I feel like Brissett, I think his ceiling was known, and maybe I'm speaking out of place. I think his ceiling was known to be lower than Garoppolo.
Yes, definitely.
But my biggest thing when it comes to it is, and you just look at those two guys you named. I mean, Brissett's more mobile than Garoppolo, but Fromm is not.
That's fair. That's very fair.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
Fromm has
he's very textbook.
Hands are in his face.
Yeah, he's like a Peyton Manning. I'm not. When it comes to in the pocket, he's Peyton Manning. He doesn't move. So that to me, and in this NFL, you can't hit the quarterback, but the quarterback has got to move, and I think that's kind of where it's in a weird NFL. You can't hit them, but if they stay in the pocket, then they have to be able to move outside the pocket. And
I would agree, and I think that's why it seemed a little weird to me too, because of the transition to this mobile QB mobile QB NFL system we have that we're transitioning into. But I guess I never looked at it from the intelligence standpoint, and I think that I might change my viewpoint on that based on how much he could really offer in the locker room.
We already converted somebody.
Yeah, slowly.
Yeah.
The one thing you haven't talked about is, I mean, the steal of the draft for you guys is first round draft. He got Stephon Diggs. And now you got a wide receiver. I mean,
they got Diggs. They got Epinesa, who was projected to be a first round.
That's my.
Well, I thought Epinesa was great. I heard a lot of people say that they didn't like that pick. I loved that pick.
Yeah, I think that was a great pick.
It's a first round talent that
dropped. 54. That pick's amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the thing is, with him, he's not a sexy player. No. He's kind of simpler, which is okay.
But he does the job that we need somebody to do.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. That you don't need to go out and reinvent the wheel. You need someone who's going to be able to bull rush. You know, that's kind of what you need.
Overall, I think that I would give Buffalo probably a B+ in their drafting. The only reason why was there was a few things that were confusing, but I think we got every weapon we needed in the first few rounds that we drafted. So outside of that, I mean, we could have built and got more weapons, and maybe that could have, in my eyes.
Well, you did. If you have to include the Stephon Diggs trade you made before the draft, you gave away a lot of picks for that, and you got an upper echelon wide receiver. So that does obviously hurt your draft, but you got a top tier wide receiver.
Yeah.
So it's.
But given all of that, I still would give it a B+.
I think that's fair. And you guys didn't have a first round wide receiver, so I guess our first round pick. So we'll count your first round pick as Stephon Diggs, which obviously is a stud.
Yeah.
But for me, the kind of little transitioning into who I think the best first round pick was. I actually thought about this for a while, and I didn't want to pick Tua, but I couldn't not pick Tua.
Wow.
And I couldn't not pick Tua because the more I looked at it, and I Dubs, I think I know who you're gonna pick, and I wanted to pick him, because I think that is arguably the best pick. I wanted to pick Chase Young because I was like, that's a cornerstone player. But with Tua, since Dan Marino left, they've had 24 quarterbacks play the quarterback position, and that's not including Ronnie Brown. Like, that is just actual quarterbacks in 20 years. That's nuts. And then if you look at the AP or AV, the value of them, their top 3 quarterbacks of all time, actually. Of all time. It's Dan Marino at 216. This is from Pro Football Focus. Bob Greasy.
Hold on. I wanted to guess. Can I guess number 3?
Yes.
All right, so Marino.
Yep.
Greasy.
I know who it is.
Is it Jay Fiedler?
No.
Nope. Is it a guy we talked about earlier today?
Yes.
Chad Pennington.
No.
No?
Nope.
What is it?
It is Ryan Tannehill.
Tannehill.
Oh, Tannehill.
Wow. Still, I thought Fiedler would have been in that mix though for a little bit.
No, he is. He's like their. He's
Tannehill
their fourth best. He's right below Tannehill.
Tannehill was unappreciated in Miami.
But can we talk about their approximate values? Marino 216, Greasy 139, Tannehill 61. Like, your third best quarterback all time is 25% of your best quarterback of all time. Obviously, Marino, great quarterback. But in 20 years, you need to find somebody. And they've tried to plug the holes with, Culpepper, Joey Harrington after his failed Detroit Lions, Pennington. They got Cutler for a little bit, Brock Osweiler. They've just tried to fill the hole, and it's never worked. And I think going with Tua, obviously their entire draft I think was great, and I think that what they're building's awesome. But they got a stud. Yeah. Health-wise apart, they picked up somebody who is a stud. You can't argue with that, and I think that's what they need. They need a little bit of hope, and I think with Fitzmagic riding out this year, they're going to show that they're still developing a very strong core. Then you get a healthy Tua there, instantly puts you at 10 wins. Instantly.
Yep.
Minimum. So that has to be the best first-round pick because that's the best improvement one player can make on a team.
Yeah, I completely agree. It was time. It was time Miami went all in with the quarterback. I like that it was Tua. I was rooting for him to, not fall, especially considering all of the injury problems he's had. Mm-hmm. Now, that does, of course, raise some red flags. But you're right. You're the Miami Dolphins. You can't afford to let another guy pass. You let Drew Brees pass because of injury problems. You can't. There you go. You cannot let a guy like Tua go down and sell to your fan base. Yeah, we are here to win. Now they could have easily picked Justin Herbert, and we'd be saying the same things about them. But Tua is special. Like the throws he makes, there are not a lot of guys in the league that can make those throws. And if they truly believe he is healthy, sound body and mind, this is going to be the team to be keeping your eye out for in the entire league, because they could instantly go from the state of absolute who cares, because that's where they've been for the last 20 years, to one of the most talked about teams in the league.
So I have a question then. Do you think that it was then a bad move for the Bengals to choose Joe Burrow over Tua?
No, not at
okay.
all.
Yeah. Okay.
Joe Burrow had, I would say,
Vince Young,
the first or second greatest season ever by a quarterback in college that I've ever seen. The only one that I would say is right there with him was Cam Newton's in terms of complete dominance on a football field. It's Cam Newton, it's Joe Burrow, and to me, there's no one else that comes close.
Vince Young.
Vince Young was great, absolutely, and he had that amazing run. But there's something to be said. I know you're gonna get angry about this, Dubs. There's something to be said about doing it in the SEC with an SEC schedule. That was by far the best, one of the best seasons I've ever seen.
I agree with that. I'm not, but Joe. After that championship, you knew where Joe Burrow was going. It wasn't a question in anybody's mind. I mean, I hope he's successful because his quotes are awesome. So he'll be entertaining.
Yes, he's going to be a very.
I think if there's no Tua injury, that debate can happen. But Tua's injury, it instantly crushes that question. Talent-wise, Tua belongs in the number one pick.
It's amazing how a jersey can alter your view of a player. If the Bengals picked Tua, we all would have been like, "Oh God, that's not good."
Yeah.
True.
He'll be out of the league faster than Josh Rosen.
But you put those teal colors on, like, oh yeah, this could be. Let's be hopeful. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
That's wild. Dubs.
All right, I'll go to my pick. I mean, steal of the draft. Arguably, in my opinion, I think he's the second best player on the board.
God.
Wow.
No, because you're going to take mine.
I think he's taking mine, too.
Is the guy who falls to the Arizona Cardinals in Isaiah Simmons. I mean, I've been preaching. He's been my number. I've had him ahead of Chase. I've had him behind Chase. Like, he to me he's a stud. And what hurts me as a Niners fan is this is a tweener who can actually play Kittle, a guy who can play tight ends one-on-one. He's big, he's strong, but he's fast. He played every position for Clemson, and Clemson used him, and they used him at an NFL type of style with Brett Venables as that defensive coordinator. Like he's intelligent, he knows where he's supposed to be, and just watching him fall and being like, he's gonna go to he just kept falling. He went to the Cardinals. It fell right into their laps.
Yep.
I mean, Cliff Kingsbury, not only is he amazingly good looking, his house is amazing.
Oh, his house was amazing.
But this offseason, Bill O'Brien calls up and says, "Hey, do you want Denard Hopkins for some no-name over-the-hill running back and a second-round draft pick?" Sure. Gets him, and then he gets arguably the second-best defensive player on the board to fall to your 8th spot. I mean, he's living a good life right now. And that to me, a steal of the draft, and they did nothing to do it. So.
Yeah, in a matter of 2 weeks, the Arizona Cardinals went from, again, a non-playoff team to a maybe an NFC top seed, like 1, 2, or 3 seed. I could easily see them winning one of those 3 seeds. And again, I'm not trying to be bold by saying that. You look at the talent that's now on this team, because what I think, this is what I was going to say until you had to go first, what Kyler Murray means to that offense, Isaiah Simmons could mean to that defense. That's how good he is. And you think about the history of the Cardinals, they never had defensive players to build around. They've had you sprinkle in a few good guys, your Aeneas Williams, and and when they brought in
Patrick Peterson.
Patrick Peterson's a great lockdown cornerback. But a cornerback is It's so funny because a few years ago, I went to a coaching clinic, and the secondary coach for the Cardinals came. I don't know why he came to, Connecticut to this coaching clinic, but he came, and someone asked him a question about Patrick Peterson, and literally all he said was, "Well, I put in a defense, and Patrick basically does what he wants. If I tell him to play man, he kind of backs off, and if I tell him to back off, he gets right up in his face. And what I've learned is, I just let him go because he's Patrick Peterson and he's really good.
Yeah, you're not going to lose too many with him. So
no, you're not. I mean, listen, a cornerback is a very valuable position, but you have a transcendent linebacker. I mean, that changes the entire look of your defense.
Yeah. I mean, Clay Matthews, the only reason the Packers were afloat for a while defensively, he was a big anchor point for them, and that was a team without a great defense.
Yep.
That can kind of transition to what the Cardinals are, where they can have a dynamic offense and a good enough defense.
I mean, look at your Saints team when they won the Super Bowl. I mean, that's Jonathan Vilma.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the guy you're looking at.
Hopefully Davis is
Yeah.
I really like how a rookie can come into the NFL and really make an impact like these players will be for some of these teams, though. I think that it's very different from when I watch like the NBA. If you get a rookie to come in, it's not always they're going to take over the franchise or make a huge impact. They're kind of going to take the backseat role, whereas like a first-round pick in the NFL could really make a difference.
Yeah, NBA is so hit or miss.
Yeah.
Yep.
So hit it.
Yep. Yeah, because you got to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're either good enough to play with the men or you're not.
Yeah.
It's very, very simple.
All right, is it my turn now?
Yes.
I'm not going to let Ryan steal mine. I like what everyone has said so far. I'm going to go a little bit deeper in the draft. I mean, I think it's easy to say, like, C.D. Lamb is a spectacular pick by the Cowboys, but, that's not really talent on the Cowboys' part. I mean, that's just right place, right time. Guy fell right in there.
Stud fell right to you.
Yeah, and it makes total sense. I mean, it's a great pick, but it's because they got lucky. They were sitting there, and he happened to be there because so many teams decided to pass on him for no reason. But so I'm going to go a little creative here. I'm going to pick a team that at the end of the first round didn't have to go bold, but kind of went a little bold. And I think he's going to be a great addition to the offense. And that's the Kansas City Chiefs.
I knew you were going to
Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, this guy has Brian Westbrook written all over him. I mean, you look at the Chiefs' offense last year, and yes, Patrick Mahomes is incredibly talented, and he's going to continue to be incredibly talented. That's going to be a pass-first offense, but they've been piecing together the running game ever since the whole Kareem Hunt situation happened. This guy runs hard. He's versatile out of the backfield. I think this was a home run pick by the Chiefs if this guy is as good as I think he is.
Well,
and he got hit in that LSU offense with Joe Burrow because they threw all the time.
Yeah.
But that guy runs hard. He can run. He can run to the outside. He can go up the middle for a little guy. He's going to be amazing on draw plays with that in that offense. This guy, I think, is the perfect fit.
He to me was the number one running back. I don't understand because of his versatility, and especially when you get him in a creative offense, and then to go to the Chiefs, it was like it fell right into not that it fell in the lap, but it was still a bold move because Swift was still on the board. It was a pick that was saying something. I mean, to me, it's an amazing pick that they had him because I think he is the number one running back on the board. But I'm interested though because I do want to clear this up. You compared him to Brian Westbrook.
Yeah, what's the matter?
Because when I compared him to Kevin Falk, you said he doesn't match up at all. I mean, you're talking about Brian Westbrook, who arguably is probably better than Kevin Falk in his career.
Right.
So
it's just the way I think you said Kevin Falk. Like, yeah, he's Kevin Falk. Like, he's a nobody. I didn't see the love, the passion for Kevin Falk that needed to be there.
Oh, my
God. Kevin Falk was amazing.
He was amazing.
Loved me.
I mean, honestly, who was his quarterback? Nobody even knows. So if it wasn't but Kevin, and I said, Kevin, my thing was the LSU lineage.
Yes, absolutely. There's the LSU connection there. Absolutely. I felt it. I felt a little disrespected when the way you said Kevin Falk on the phone. I will see some damn respect when you talk about Kevin Vaughn.
Really didn't mean any disrespect to me. It was a high praise compliment, but whatever.
But yeah, I think it's a smart pick. You know, the rich get richer. You know,
Yeah.
When you don't have many holes, you're able to reach, quote unquote, because it wasn't a reach, but you're able to be slightly bolder with your pick because you have Mahomes anyway. Like you have a safety net.
You have a system that works.
Yeah. Yep. You're down 10 points. That's fine. I'll come back in every game. Doesn't matter. So, yeah, I think that was a very, very smart pickup. Ryan?
I'm probably going to go with an obvious choice here, too. I think that Chase Young was a really great choice for the Redskins. The team is already rebuilding. You can see that in last season when they
were awful.
Well, they were awful, yeah, but they switched their quarterback like mid-season. Like they named Dwayne Haskins, right? Yeah, as their team starting quarterback. So I think to me that was just a sign because he was a rookie last year, right?
Yeah, he was their first round pick.
He was a first round pick. Yeah. So I think that was just a sign they were saying, all right, well, we need to start over. We need to just get like a new foundation. And this right here, I think gives them like the best defensive line like in the league right now, just with like their overall like drafting and especially with Chase Young.
I mean,
Chase Young, Kerrigan.
Listen, not the best defensive line in the league because that still belongs to San Francisco, but
yeah, but it gives them
they need to get better.
It gives them a boost in a new culture. You know, they got Ron Rivera, a new head coach, defensive guy, and what they're able to do is say, we're gonna be tough up front, which is what you have to do. If you're bad, you're bad. You know, I don't see them being a great team, even though the East isn't strong. But
this is going to be a 2 to 3 year project trying to rebuild this team.
But if you have somebody that can, you know, kind of excite the fans every once in a while, he can get that sack on third down. He's able to. You can get the fans involved and maybe pick up a game or two because of him. I think he's good enough to make you at least a game or two better.
Defense is the place to start anyways. I mean, this way that they at least can make stops and that gives them a little bit of morale.
Yeah, it gives Haskins a shot when he gets on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it gives him more opportunities.
Yeah, you know, I think Chase Young's a transcendent talent, and I think if you're gonna build, you know, obviously all the top picks are easy to build around. So that's why when I picked Tua, it was like I'm kind of cheating because he's arguably the best player in the draft, but. You know, I still
some could say Young though. Some could even say that Young was the best player of the draft.
Yeah, you know? All the top picks are all arguably the best player, but it's all about what the team vision is, what your biggest need is, and how close you are to competing. You know?
Yeah.
They can draft Young because they're very far away from competing. You know, Tua instantly does put them in the conversation of a playoff team if he's healthy and everything works out. Puts him in the conversation. Chase Young does not do that. So it's an interesting thing of how you find value. Like Simmons puts them in the conversation of a playoff team now. You know,
Washington. Yeah, I don't think there was a pick on the board that was going to make Washington a playoff team.
No.
It's going to take Rivera a few years to get that thing right. I think 2 to 3 years at least to try and get that thing turned around.
But it's a good place to start.
Yeah,
you know,
step in the right direction.
Yeah, you know, Edwards-Helaire instantly makes the Chiefs a playoff team. So you know, first round picks they have. First round picks, man. They have instantly puts them as the favorite now.
Yeah, kind of like those Chiefs. Their chances there.
Yeah, I'm going out on a limb there.
Yeah.
So, do you have a point, Dubs?
I was gonna say, do you want to move? I don't know if you want to move on to day 2 pick or.
Well, I'm down. Let's do. You can either do your favorite day 2 pick or a pick in day 1 or 2 that you were kind of feeling questionable about. I'll let you guys go first. I have a pick that I still don't know how I feel about, so I kind of want to just keep pondering it because I like it and I don't like it at the same time.
Dubs, you going first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm just gonna do my best day 2 pick because to me, this is another one of the guys I wanted the Niners to get maybe at the end of the first round instead of trading up. And it's really weird because we were talking about the day of the draft and this team had a draft that didn't make sense to who they are. They drafted, in my opinion, very smart. And it's Cleveland Browns getting the safety, Grant Delpit. To me, his injury, he was a top last year. If he came out, he was a top 5 pick. That's what everybody was saying. He's top 10 pick because of this thing, because of his mobility, his ability to read. But he got hurt, and when he got hurt, some of his weaknesses got exposed. But my understanding, you're playing at LSU, and if you don the number 7 jersey at LSU, there's a lineage when it comes with that of these great players, and I think that's he plays sideline to sideline, and as a safety now in the NFL, you don't need Ronnie Lott. Ronnie Lott would not work in the NFL. That's oh my gosh, who's the guy at safety who's always out? But he doesn't. You can't hit him, but you can play the ball, and he plays the ball well.
Are you talking about the great safety that is known as Rodney Harrison?
Who couldn't break up a pass that was on a helmet? Okay. You walked right into that.
I know.
But that's how I view it as that, and it was so taking the tackle in the first round. It's so un-Browns like that it was nice to see. And to me, I think that they really did shore up that back end. I really like that pick. He dropped, but it was a smart value pick. Here's the guy who has top 10 talent, and if he's healthy, and if you believe he's healthy, same thing with I'm not comparing him, but if he's like Tua, and they're both healthy, they come back and they're the player that everyone thought they were the year before. Well,
they're both steals.
That's a steal at 5 and a steal at 44. So to me, that's I view it that way. To me, that was just a great pick by Cleveland.
Yeah, for me, the pick I'm going back and forth on, and at the time I didn't get it, and I still don't really get it, and it's Jalen Hurts, and I'm trying to wrap my mind about why they would do it. And
that was gonna be what I was gonna say.
Yeah, because I see the pros of it. Is you get a quarterback that was actually really successful, but everyone thinks oh, he got taken over by Tua. Well, Tua's a superstar in the making, so it's he was productive. Then he got taken over. Then he went to Oklahoma and was very productive there. So everyone's looking at the bad stuff that happened to him and not the good stuff, not his actual success that he was able to do. And he went to Doug Peterson, a quarterback guy, so maybe he can groom him. But at the same time, you used a second-round pick on a guy when you just signed Carson Wentz, and it isn't worth it. But then Carson Wentz has the out in his contract at 2022, and I feel like there are so many layers to this that I don't know if they know what they're doing.
And then because then it goes back again. Well, what's your vision?
Yeah.
You just signed Carson Wentz to this massive contract. If your vision is Carson Wentz is our guy, and Jalen Hurts is just going to be our backup, he's just going to – you don't draft backup quarterbacks in the second round.
Especially when you have no wide receivers.
No, not at all. And I do not like the selection of Jalen Reagor at all.
Not for them.
This is a franchise that also has had a very hard time drafting receivers. In fact, that's been their story for the last 20 years. They always had a hard time drafting wide receivers. So, for them to take Reagor and then follow that up with Jalen Hurts, I'm with you, Jeremy. Mm-hmm. I don't get it. I don't understand it. The only logic I can find in it is they signed Wentz to that contract. It's the NFL contracts,
mean nothing.
But still, then Wentz cannot be 100% healthy. That's the only reason why you make that move is he's not 100% healthy. So we have to prepare quickly for our next successor. And perhaps that is Jalen Hurts, but you couldn't get him in the third round. You had to waste a second round. The one thing Belichick said in his press conference after the draft was his plan was to draft a quarterback, but it didn't work out that way. So that was my thought process was, okay, Jalen Hurts must have been that guy because that was the only guy on the board that was taken way before the experts thought he was going to.
Yeah, I see that. That made no sense, but to me, it was Philly. They reached. Personally, I know Jeremy was in love with Reagor.
But different team. I think it works. Yeah. He works on the Saints.
But it was a reach at 21, and then the Hurts pick. I remember looking at it being like, wait, what? Who did what? You're watching it like it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't fit them what you thought they're trying to build as a team, because you look at that division and you can make the argument the Cowboys took a huge step forward. The Giants got better.
Giants
healed up a lot, and so did the Redskins. Yeah. And if you're a team like Philly, you have a window. Like the Redskins they shouldn't be competing with you. The Giants really shouldn't be competing with you. But here's your window with the Cowboys, and anything can happen. And it's almost like they're like, oh, we're gonna kind of stay where we are, and you're not taking it. You took a risk. It's a risk, but I don't even know what your reward is. Like if your reward is he's playing,
well, then you just wasted 20 million or whatever the cap hit on Wentz is.
Right.
Yeah.
To me, you might as well, if this was going to make sense, we should have heard the Carson Wentz trade right after that.
Mm-hmm.
You found a place for him. You're bringing in more draft assets, and now you're redoing this thing with a more mobile quarterback who's healthier.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, okay, that's a vision. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, you don't believe Carson Wentz is your guy anymore. You can't go back in time and erase the contract, so you might as well try to move on from it. But now they're trying to pitch it as, oh no, yeah, Carson's our guy. This guy we drafted here is just in case something happens to him.
Yeah.
That doesn't sell. Not as a second round.
Not a second. And it's not, people talk about, they'll use him as Taysom Hill. Well, you're not using a second round pick. That's not how Taysom Hill works. Taysom Hill was undrafted. Well, we got him from the Packers when the Packers got rid of him. And he's a gadget player. Jalen Hurts is pretty stuck into the pocket for the most part. I think he can. I think he can return. I don't think he's nearly as dynamic as Taysom Hill is.
Hold on. Yes, they are. They are the same player. When Taysom Hill was at BYU, they're the same style. They run with the ball. Taysom's a little bit bigger than.
And that's what I'm saying. I think he can be used in bigger package. Also, who's the Eagles' backup? I think.
That's the problem.
Yeah, Hurts is going to be their backup. So you can't use him as much as Taysom. That's
which I agree with, but that's why it doesn't fit with the model. But I'm not letting you compare him with Taysom Hill when it comes to that, because he is very similar to Taysom Hill. If anything, he's more mobile than Taysom Hill was when he was in college. It doesn't look like he is, but he is more mobile.
Well, I think you're both right. I think the way the Eagles plan on using Jalen Hurts is not the way the Saints use Taysom.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. People have compared that they're going to use him as Taysom, and that doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't at all. You're right. I think Jalen Hurts is a more – but again, you don't draft a Taysom Hill or that Taysom Hill role in the second round. You don't do it. You don't do that.
Yeah, you don't reach for gadgets.
Unless you're the Chiefs, who could, because you won a Super Bowl and your team's loaded.
Yeah.
You don't have that luxury at Philly where you're a 500 team if lucky and you have no one who catches the ball.
Yeah, so, like you made the playoffs last year because everyone else stunk,
yeah.
But now the whole NFC is so much better. So your division got harder, but also the wild card is not coming out of the East. That's just not going to happen. So if you do not win, if they don't beat the Cowboys, and the Cowboys I think are probably going to win 10 to 11 games. I think 11 games is very fair for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I don't see the Eagles up doing that. So, I think the Eagles are now out of the playoffs. They're sitting at between 7 and 8 wins, because they don't have much.
Games now. There's 17 games now.
That is fair. Well, it's if they play the full schedule.
Well, that's true. So,
that's a different issue.
It all comes down to what happens
there, man. Let's just hopefully we can
get that. I think it came out today that up until October 15th, they're still going to be able to play a 16 game. If they start by October 15th or 16th, they'll still be able to play a full 16, which is insane because that's 6 weeks after the season starts.
Yep.
That they'll still be able to push everything back.
Wow. They got to start earlier.
What?
That's the problem. Well, I don't want to get into the whole.
Yeah, that's it came out today. Again, we don't know if that's actually going to happen, but that's something they said. Any other interesting picks, whether it's high picks, late rounds, sleepers?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I have two guys that I think that were steals late, and I also have my controversial picks. But I think we should save the controversial pick to the end. I mean, if you want to do it the last thing. But I'll go with my two. I think really good, solid picks of who they are and the teams, what they represent. Is one of them is from Pittsburgh. Alex Highsmith from Charlotte. He's a walk-on at Charlotte. At the end of the third round, he leaves Charlotte as the all-time sack leader. And one of the things you notice is, all right, well, what do people say about him? In Clemson's line, he played everywhere on the line, and Clemson said he was the hardest guy to defend one-on-one, and it's because of how he comes after his technique. You're talking about a Clemson line. A lot of those guys got drafted. So, it's one of the best teams in football. This is who you're going against, and they said just the way he plays is such a different style. That's what makes him so just competitive when it came to it. And he goes to a team like the Steelers, where all they do is print out linebackers, throughout their history. And I think he fills that perfect role when it comes to them in, just being right there at the end of the third round. I think it was a perfect pick. My other one is, which I think they had an amazing draft, which was Miami. It's pick 164. It's Curtis Weaver from Boise State. Besides Young, he was the most productive defensive end in college football for the past 4 years. And to me, that does say something. And they talked about when he went up against big defense, he went up against tackles that were drafted in the first round, he beat them. So it's that pick of like, I get it's Boise, and they don't go up against the competition all the time. He's not the biggest guy or whatever. But again, it's that guy to me. It's like, he can have a career. He's a fighter. He's gonna have a career, and he's productive. At the end of the day, he's productive.
Where did he go again, Dubs? What team?
Miami.
And if you can get a rotational line guy who has a motor, that's all you need. If you're a rotational guy, hey, you're going in, you get your 30 snaps or whatever it is. Like, that's what you kind of need.
And both those guys, like I know the one's a linebacker, he played all over the field on the linebacker, and he lined up in the dirt. And Weaver played all across the line. So to me, you have the versatility in college. It's easily going to help you in the NFL because you understand if I'm the defensive tackle what I need to, what run block, what run zone I need to stay in. So I think that's added value, and I think that those two, one's late in the third and one's early in the third, but one's late in the third, one's in the fourth, were great draft picks for their value.
Yeah, the two I have are actually from the Jaguars. Which is a team that I wasn't necessarily confused by they went defense early, but I thought they would have went a wide receiver to kind of give Minshew something, but it makes sense what they're doing. They know they don't really have much of an identity, but when they picked up their tackle Ben Bartsch from St. John's in the 4th round, pick 116, and then Colin Johnson pick 165 in the 5th round, those are two guys. Their offensive tackle Ben Bartsch was projected about half of what he was actually drafted. I think he was projected around the top 60-ish, and he ended up going to 116, which is obviously a huge jump, and it gives you an offensive line development. You can actually start building something, because you're losing Fournette. But that's a different issue. They didn't trade Fournette or what's the defensive end's name?
I forget the defense.
I know I'm going to say it wrong. That's why.
Yeah.
But they didn't trade either of those to get any draft picks back. So that's a different issue. But they're able to develop something. They end up picking up C.J. Anderson, who replaces Ramsey at the cornerback position. You pick up a defensive tackle or offensive tackle who was ranked in the top 50 in the 4th round. And then you get Colin Johnson, a wide receiver out of Texas who was very productive but got hurt as a senior. He's a big guy. He's 6'6". You got a big target to throw to, which really helps a quarterback that is not a top 12, top 15 quarterback in Minshew. A guy who kind of mobile enough that he kind of makes some things work, and I think that gives him an opportunity to maybe find some success. I know they're not going to find much success. They're the Jaguars. They have so many holes. I don't think they're coached well. They're not run well. I don't really think that's a me opinion. I think that's kind of a very blanket statement that everyone agrees with. I think those two picks at least made sense that they're putting a product on the field that might be successful. And at least that they did do some research into the draft. It's not like the Raiders where they're just like, all right, we'll take this. Fastest guy, we like you. Big school, we like you.
Yeah, I agree. I like them getting Chase on too later on that round as well. Again, they're going back, I think, to their old DNA of, hey, we were really successful when we had this really, really dominant defense. Let's see if we can, rebuild that and run it back again and see what happens. But yeah, they're another franchise which is like they really, really struggle to bring in offensive talent. Mm-hmm. And then when you have Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, and CeeDee Lamb staring you in the face, or even Jordan Love, who if they drafted him at 9, no one would have blamed them for doing that because he instantly would have been the most talented quarterback that franchise has had next to Mark Brunell. So that's why I kind of would have liked Jacksonville to
take a risk,
step outside themselves for a second. Like, maybe don't play it safe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you have to lose? You draft Jordan Love, he shows he is worth the hype. Now you have something. Now you really have something here. Now maybe in the following year, go back to your DNA and find your defensive guys and rebuild the defense. But the fact that they can never seem to figure out how to bring in either good quarterbacks, good receivers, tight ends, they can't figure that part of it out. And you have those names on the board. I don't know. What Dubs?
Hold on. As a guy who, until his players got injured in fantasy, was running the table in fantasy football last year with a guy like C.J. Shuck, the wide receiver for Jacksonville, and Chris Conley, who got regulated to the third wide receiver. Their wide receivers are actually pretty talented when it was Gardner Minshew. Now, I'm not saying Gardner Minshew is going to going to be the savior, but I agree with what you said in the beginning, which is they're building the way that they used to be, right? Win with the defense, build a tough defense. You look at the first two picks, that's what they did.
Yep.
And then I like the rest of the draft because what they're saying is, okay, let's see what we have in Minshew for this year. And now if we build, and our defense is great, we're still not going to win a lot of games. We're going to be able to we're able to move and draft a quarterback if we really want to. I think that's kind of what you're looking at. And also, which we've noticed, is you're able to get a quarterback cheap and you build your team strong, you can make runs. And I'm not saying he's going to be the greatest, but I do. And then picking up the kid from Colorado, who
it's a good pick.
I'm not a fan, but
major project.
Yeah, but at 42, I'm willing to take that risk. I think that's kind of something I'm willing to do when it comes to that. And to pick up a guy like the offensive tackle that Jeremy said earlier, that kid wins that Minnesota transfer, goes to St. John's. Like, he has that raw talent. I think that they made some picks that, to me, were smart. I kind of actually like where the Jags are going.
But to me, I feel like you're saying two different things, though, or at least there are two different plans. See what we have with Gardner Minshew, but we're probably not going to be that good. If you're probably not going to be that good, it's because Gardner Minshew isn't good. Like, to me, there's no. Again, it's what lane are you going with?
Do you feel the same way about Stidham then? Where if you guys aren't good, that means Stidham's not good. Well, yeah, actually, I think it's a little different because you guys aren't nearly as talented potentially as the Jaguars could be.
Well, not only that, we also didn't have the 9th pick in the draft.
Yeah.
Where like if we want to roll with Stidham, then yeah, we're drafting Jerry Jeudy, we're drafting CD Lamb, or we're swapping that pick for 2 later first round picks, which I think the Jaguars also could have done, and then picking guys there to surround Stidham with. And again, it's different when it comes to the cap space because they had such limited cap space. That's also why they traded out of the Patriots traded out of the first round because they couldn't afford a high pick anyways. So to me, that's apples and oranges. They're two completely different situations. And plus, the Patriots have 6 Super Bowls. If they want to take a year off to experiment, that's one thing. But for the Jaguars, and to me, nearly every other team in the NFL who hasn't won anything, pick a lane. What lane are you going with? The whole concept of, hey, we'll figure out the quarterback. What team has that ever benefited? That approach in terms of winning Super Bowls, because that's what it's all about.
I agree with you. But to also say that the NFL draft, where the quarterbacks come in the first round, are the greatest quarterback of all time is a 6th round draft pick. So when you look at this, to say that it's Jordan Love, let's make that bold move. Well, maybe the bold move, and this is why I like it, is C.J. Henderson is the number 1 guy on that board at 9. Chason is the number 1 guy on their board at 20. To me, I think that they went, who do we have available? I think that also the reason for the Henderson pick was also we have to get Ramsey. I think they definitely maybe played a little bit of role in that. I'm not going to dispute that at all. But I do feel like they went big board. They went, who's the best guy regardless of talent? And I think that that's kind of what they did, because I look at their wide receivers. I don't think that they needed a project guy. They took him. That's fine. I think that they have some. As somebody who benefited from that team, put 2 guys on their fantasy, I could see their talent there with that offense when it was Minshew as the quarterback. So, but my biggest thing with those picks when it comes to the Jaguars is they didn't trade those 2 guys. So I don't know. That to me is more telling. But unless you trade him by the trading deadline or offseason, that's fine.
Right.
But to me, that was kind of weird. It's like, because also running back value, I don't really know what you're getting. But it's really kind of odd to not have traded one of those guys to either get more picks. That to me was probably the most shocking aspect of it.
Especially the defensive end, who has shown he can be productive. Fournette has shown, and he has some other issues as well, but the defensive end has shown to be very productive, and you couldn't even flip him. So you guys got any?
Yeah, I'd like to throw in something here. I agree the Dolphins had probably the best draft of the night.
I think
it's funny. There are not a lot of teams I feel like were like in the middle in terms of, they had an average draft, like some good picks, some bad picks. I feel like a lot of teams either did really well or they did really, really, really bad. Like the Bears, the Falcons, the Packers, the Eagles. Terrible, terrible drafts. The one team I think really, really stands out to me, especially from a character perspective, trying to bring in good characters into their franchise, is the San Diego Chargers. I love the picks that San Diego Chargers made.
Who are you talking about?
I'm old. I'm Los Angeles. I'm sorry. No.
Los Angeles.
Until they get more than 5,000 people in that stadium, I'm calling them the San Diego Chargers.
That might be for 3 more years.
Yeah, so that might not happen for a while.
Exactly. I mean one game. I don't mean collectively for the year.
They do have nice jerseys, though, now.
They have spectacular jerseys. But they lost their franchise quarterback, probably the greatest player to ever play for that franchise.
LT.
Dan Fouts.
Rivers is better than Dan Fouts. Stop
I know.
Stop it. The fact that they lost their franchise quarterback and what they replaced him with. Now, I'm not a big Justin Herbert guy. I think the guy has major, major flaws in his game. I think he was a little bit overhyped. But what you cannot argue with is he's a really good character guy. This is a guy who came out in the draft last year, been a top 10 pick, wanted to go back to see if his childhood team, if he could bring them to the national championship. There's something compelling about that. There's something honorable about that. Kenneth Murray is the same caliber guy coming out of Oklahoma. It's somebody I think that defense needs. There's a lot of talent in that defense. But for whatever reason, they did not figure it out last year. I think with Derwin James coming back next year, Kenneth Murray is going to fit in perfectly. Talk about a sideline-to-sideline player. It's easy for Chase Young to look like a standout at Ohio State because everyone on that defensive line is filthy. Everyone on that defense is filthy, especially when you're going against Big Ten offenses, okay? Being a standout defensive player in the Big 12 when they score 1,000 points a game, that's something. And this guy is a high motor guy that I think will fit in perfectly there. Then you add the story of Joshua Kelly coming out of UCLA in the 3rd round. And if you guys listened to that story during the draft, that was amazing how he literally begged to get into UCLA, and he ended up going 1,000 yards in back-to-back years. These are the type of stories, you bring these type of guys in, I think can slowly start to change the look of the franchise or the vision or the culture of a franchise. And the Chargers are a culture that needed to be changed. And I think they did an excellent job trying to address that in this draft.
And I think you left out a steal that they got.
The 7th round pick.
KJ Hill. Yeah. KJ Hill. I think that as a 7th, he's in the 7th round, you take him at 220. I mean, I don't understand how he fell, but like to me, that's a guy who, he runs great routes. And for Herbert, he's going to learn let's say he learns for 1 year under Keenan Allen, who can run unbelievable routes. To me, that's just going to help him. So,
you mean Keenan Allen, the eventual signee of the New England Patriots next year?
Okay, sure.
Speaking,
you still need a quarterback or whatever.
We might have one. We don't know yet.
Yeah, just like the Jaguars. See? Oh my gosh, great vision.
Because Doug Marone's going to get fired this year.
Hopefully. And Tom Coughlin needs to go too.
Hold on. Tom Coughlin's gone.
Yeah, he's already gone.
Yeah, he's gone. But first off, if Doug Marone's job is saved, Bill O'Brien's still coaching, so don't even worry about it.
That's very true. That's very true.
But yeah, I think it's important for the Chargers because that was their big thing moving out was, the Rams, they got Gurley, they had Goff, they went to the Super Bowl and all that stuff, and it was just the Chargers were supposed to be always contending, and they never did. And now this could be their reimagining because the Rams are in disarray. They have awful cap space. Their contracts are not. All their contracts were for that 2-year window. They had to find success. They didn't. Then they threw out a lot of money to a lot of people who didn't deserve it, or deserved it but not that contract. And I think now the Chargers have the shot to take over LA.
No one's taking over LA.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that either.
I wouldn't say take over LA as in being
I don't think people would come. I don't. It was a bad move to begin with.
LA is a hard city to be a sports team in because it's not a homegrown area.
They need to move the Chargers back.
LA is not a place where people born you live in the whole time. It's not that type of town.
Yeah.
But that is a different issue and a different discussion. But I think they're able to finally have an identity that they haven't really had since. Obviously, Philip Rivers only a few months ago he was a Charger, but their actual successful season when they sadly did lose to the Ravens though. Really since then it's kind of just been unraveling. And I think Herbert. I'm not a fan of Herbert. I don't think he's first. I don't think he's. If you start 43 games in college, you should not be that big of a project.
It was funny how Mel Kiper was talking about Herbert too.
Well, everybody was positive. You gotta remember that.
Yes, which is fine.
Yeah.
I guess I couldn't help but laugh because he was talking about him being a big game player. Was it Mel Kiper or was it Cowherd? It was somebody talking about how he was a big game player.
It was Colin Cowherd loves Herbert. Cowherd loves Herbert.
Maybe it was him because he was going, oh my God, in his big games, you look at how he played against Auburn. You look at that game, and you know what? He played okay. And you look at Washington, and he played good against Washington. I'm like, wait a minute. These are the big games Justin Herbert played in? Auburn and Washington?
Yep. Two teams that never were close to the playoffs. Like, those are the big games that you want to, put your hat on. Like, no.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is Oregon and Herbert were disappointments.
Mm-hmm.
They really were. I mean, they were projected to at least be sniffing at the playoff, and they never were really considered that serious as the year went on.
No.
Well, when you lose first game, it's hard, especially when you're a Pac-12 team losing an SEC team. It's very difficult.
But at least that would have been considered a good loss.
Yeah. You go 11-1, that's a little different.
Right, you go 11-1, but you got to go against that tough Pac-12 schedule. You're gonna lose eventually, apparently.
I mean, I personally, I think Herbert. I think it was a good pick for them at that point. I mean, I had him going mid to Miami in my mock, but I think it's a smart pick in the sense of we need a franchise guy. We lost our franchise guy. If you did your homework on him and you think he's that guy, you got to take him there. I think what's the best part, which is crazy, is that no one traded. And I wonder if it has to do with the fact because of this pandemic where, there's not as much movement, not as much, they always say, like, nobody can keep a secret because all the offensive line coach talk to the offensive line coach. Like, they're all buddies, so they actually can't keep secrets. But maybe this time everyone kept the secret because they couldn't talk to each other.
Can't talk to each other.
So,
you don't want to send the text because then it knows who you're talking to.
So I think that's what it was. And, to me, I agree. They kind of found a path, which is kind of weird for San Diego or LA because they didn't have a path in San Diego. It always felt like it was Philip Rivers, get us to the playoffs. Like, and Philip Rivers, Antonio Gates, and Allen get us to the playoffs. Like, for the longest time. And they always have a kicker that missed the field goal. But they always seem to have that, like, we're just going to try to force our way there this year. I mean, this draft kind of seems like, all right, let's get our quarterback, get this guy. Like, let's do what we need to do to build this team.
They definitely turned a new page.
I think it's smart. Yeah, I think I agree with what you said earlier, Coach Guy, that there were a lot of good drafts all around, which is good to see. It's what you want in the sport. You want people to be able to get good picks so they can get them on cheap contracts and maybe land a free agent so we can get some diversity in the sport.
And I think it's starting to kind of go that way a little bit more now. I think the playing field has definitely started to level out. I think you look at both conferences, they're easily 4-5 deep. And to me, there's definitely no real clear number one. Obviously, Brady leaving the Patriots makes that a little bit easier to do.
Mm-hmm.
But even as good as the Chiefs were last year and how great Patrick Mahomes was, yes, I expect them to be in the mix. I don't think it's a slam dunk them to be, a Super Bowl team next year. It wouldn't shock me if they didn't get back.
Because they did struggle last year. So you know that they are human.
Yep.
We saw that they have the weakness.
Yep.
And it was when Mahomes wasn't playing well, they kind of fell apart.
In this draft, even though certain positions might not have been as strong, I think from top to bottom, as kids coming out of college, this might have been the deepest draft in a long time. I mean, there were steals in the mid rounds.
Yeah, so I think this puts us in a good spot to kind of close this episode of the podcast. We covered a lot of different things. I'm going to put some timestamps down below so you guys kind of have a gauge of when we talked about the draft, individual teams, players, and everything. But I think this was a good discussion. I think we kind of definitely picked on every little piece. I think the best part about, there's two best things I liked about the draft. One, it was sports. And two, I think it was, for the most part, a lot of good things. And maybe it's just because it was a lack of sports that I was like, oh, that's a good pick. That's good. I'm glad there's going to be success for Tua in Miami. Miami had a great draft. A lot of the teams that normally don't do well, you could find some hope for them. And I think it's just a lack of sports. But for me, I like that. Again, you guys can find me here on the YouTube channel. You can also find me, I stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/thelongrun_. All those links will be in description, and you guys can take it away.
All right. I was going to go right to your point, is just to back to somewhat normalcy. Now, it felt, you had even though the draft parties were maybe on Zoom or something, but you had some normalcy and being able to talk about something new. It wasn't talking about, an old game, an old documentary or anything like that. It was new material that everyone was dissecting, and it was fun. You're able to laugh, you're able to make fun of your friend's team if they did, it was enjoyable. And I think that's where, just bringing that back was fun. That's where I'll leave it on that. Hoping to launch again with our 5FootNothinSports podcast with me, Coach Dubs and Coach K. You can follow me at Coach_Dubs. And we'll go from there. Hope to see everyone around.
Yeah, same thing here, just to echo all of that. My favorite part about sports is that it's the best distractor. And when you're going through a tough time, you need a distraction. And I think we all needed a distraction of, something else to talk about, something else to get, something finally to get excited about, even if it is the NFL draft. And, we're not 100% sure what these guys are going to be, how good they're going to be, but at least it's fun to talk about. It's been able to distract us from all of just the awfulness that's been going on, how mundane life has been. This has been a lot of fun. And thank you definitely for tuning in. Yep, you can catch Coach Dubs and I at FiveFootNothin.blogspot.com. 5FootNothinSports, 5FootNothing.
5FootNothin.
Nothing.
Nothing.
No G's.
We took the G out now. Check out the website. Probably by the end of the week, it should be up and running and looking the way I want it to look. We're going to launch some other podcasts as well. I'll launch that on the site towards the end of the week. I can get into my new hobby I can't wait to talk about. Dubs is probably not going to be a part of it.
Nope.
I'm trying to get him a part of it. So if you like to collect trading cards, sports cards, we'll have some good content for you there. They'll all be up on the website.
1986 Fleener packs.
Fleener packs.
Or Fleer, whatever they are.
Fleer.
Whatever. I can't. Hey, I have a list, all right?
He's a 90s baby.
But hey, those are what you got to get.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you other things to get to. But yeah, if you're looking for something else to distract you, it is a great great distraction. So we'll have stuff on that on the website.
Cards are doing better than the stock market, so you're good.
Oh, cards!
That's true.
The card market's exploding. It's absurd.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely absurd. So yeah, definitely check us out.
Right, guy?
All right.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about college versus.
We've already talked about that on here.
All right. Either way, guys, call your mom, tell her love her, she deserves to know, but we are out.